The year is 2342. Humanity has finally reached for the stars, and we've made contact. The Zyron. They were everything science fiction promised and more. Majestic, crystalline beings from a distant nebula, communicating through shimmering light patterns and complex energy pulses. They were cautious, logical, and deeply wary of us. Our initial meetings were tense. We offered them data, technology, our history. They analyzed it all with cold, detached precision. The Council of Worlds called it the most delicate diplomatic dance in human history. We were getting nowhere. Days turned into weeks, and the Zyron remained aloof, their ships hovering silently in orbit around our designated meeting point on a sterile space station. I was part of the cultural exchange team. My name is Anya Sharma, and I'm not a diplomat or a scientist. I'm a chef. My job was to showcase human culture through food, a concept the Zyron found perplexing. They didn't eat in the way we did. They absorbed pure energy. So my station was mostly for the human crew, a little slice of home amidst the cold vacuum of space. The diplomatic team was frustrated. Their logical arguments, their demonstrations of peaceful intent, none of it was breaking through the Zyron's wall of logic. They saw us as chaotic, emotional, and unpredictable. They weren't wrong, but that's also where our strength lies. One day, I was preparing a special treat for our weary human negotiators, Gulab Jamun. It's a classic Indian dessert, a comfort food from my childhood. Soft, spongy balls made from milk solids, deep fried to a golden brown, and then soaked in a warm, fragrant syrup infused with rosewater, cardamom, and saffron. The aroma filled our section of the station sweet, rich, and utterly divine. As I was gently placing the warm, syrupy spheres into a bowl, something unexpected happened. The Zyron never visited our habitat module. But that day, 2 of their younglings, their cubs, as our linguists called them, drifted silently into the galley. They were smaller versions of the adults, their crystalline forms glowing with a softer, more curious light. The adults communicated with focused beams. These little ones shimmered with a rainbow of scattered colors, like sunlight through a prism. They weren't supposed to be there, but they floated towards my cooking station, their light patterns pulsing with what could only be described as curiosity. They hovered near the bowl of Gulab Jamun. Their light flickered, focusing on the glistening, amber-colored dessert. They didn't have noses, but I could swear they were smelling it. One of them extended a delicate crystalline tendril towards the bowl. Protocol screamed at me to stop them. Unauthorized contact. Potential contamination. But instinct, the same instinct that told me how much cardamom to add, took over. I smiled. Gently, I took a small, clean dish, placed 1 perfect Gulab Jamun in it, and slid it towards the little one. It hesitated, its light patterns swirling in a complex dance of caution and intrigue. Then, its tendril touched the dessert. A tiny jolt of light pulsed through its body. It didn't eat it, not like we would. It seemed to be analyzing its composition. The sugar, the milk proteins, the complex aromatic compounds from the spices. Suddenly, the little Zyron lit up like a festival lantern. A wave of brilliant, joyful colors, pinks, yellows, and soft oranges burst from its body, reflecting off every surface in the galley. It pulsed with pure, unadulterated delight. The other cub, seeing its siblings' reaction, eagerly drifted forward and touched the Gulab Jamun too, erupting in a similar symphony of happy colors. Within minutes, the galley was filled with a silent, dazzling light show. The 2 cubs nudged the bowl, begging for more with their shifting colors. The adult Zyron diplomats arrived shortly after, their light patterns flashing with alarm. They found their younglings not harmed, but happy, giddy even. They were mesmerized by the data stream coming from the dessert. It wasn't just energy. It was a complex sensory experience. The warmth, the sweetness, the fragrant spices, it was a story in a bite. A story of warmth, care, and simple joy. This was the breakthrough. The Zyron leaders, seeing the pure, unfiltered joy in their young, began to see us differently, Our emotions, our chaos, wasn't a flaw. It was a source of things they had no concept of, like the comfort of a shared meal, the delight of a sweet treat. They started asking questions not about our weapons or our political structures, but about art, about music, and about food. They wanted to understand the culture that could create something that brought their young so much joy. The Gulab Jamun Accord, as it was unofficially nicknamed, was signed a month later. It wasn't based on mutual strategic interests, but on a newfound mutual respect and curiosity. They saw that our emotional depth wasn't a weakness, but a different kind of strength. It all started in a humble kitchen, a universe away from home, with a dessert born from tradition and love. It turns out, the path to intergalactic peace wasn't paved with logic and treaties, but with warm, sticky, delicious Gulab Jamun. Sometimes the most powerful diplomacy isn't a speech. It's sharing something sweet. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to explore the stories behind the food you love. You never know where they might lead you. The alliance between humanity and the Zyren had grown stronger over the years, a bond forged in mutual respect and shared hope. But no one expected their next great test of friendship to begin with a missing desert shipment. It started on Zyren Prime, a world shimmering under the light of twin blue suns. In the Central Nursery District, hundreds of fluffy Alien Cubs gathered for the annual Unity Day celebration, a holiday now shared with Earth. And just as tradition demanded, crates had arrived from their human friends. Inside each crate were carefully sealed containers labeled, "Nutritionally modified Gulab Jamun, Zyren approved." The cubs cheered when they saw them. "Sunballs, sunballs," they chanted, bouncing in small, excited waves. Zibby, now taller and more composed, but still bursting with energy, stood at the front of the group. As the youth ambassador for interspecies relations, she had helped organize the entire event. She carefully prized open the first container. Her ears froze. It was empty. She opened another, empty, and another. Still empty. The joyous cheering slowly faded into confused murmurs. Within minutes, worried whispers spread through the nursery halls. The entire shipment, every last Gulab Jamun, was gone. Back on Earth, alarms blared inside the Interstellar Trade Commission. The cargo vessel Harmony Bridge arrived right on schedule, an officer reported, his voice tight. But the food containers were found empty upon inspection on Zyren Prime. "That's impossible," Ambassador Mara said firmly. Though she was older now, her voice still carried a calm, uncheckable authority. Each batch was triple sealed and inspected before launch. "Ma'am, security footage shows no evidence of tampering during the entire transit." The room fell silent. If this was sabotage, it could unravel years of trust. The Gulab Jamun tradition was more than just a symbolic gesture now. It was deeply woven into the cultural fabric of their alliance. Meanwhile, on Zyren Prime, cub morale had plummeted. Pico, one of the older cubs, tried to reassure the younger ones. "Don't worry. Perhaps the humans will just send more. But Unity Day is today," a tiny cub whimpered, its ears drooping. "It just doesn't feel right without sunballs." Sibby closed her eyes and took a deep breath, steadying herself. Humans had never, ever failed them before. There had to be an explanation. "Prepare a direct communication line to Earth," she ordered, her voice clear and decisive. What neither side realized was that the culprit wasn't political. It was biological. Halfway between Earth and Zyren Prime, aboard the cargo vessel during its long journey, a stowaway species had been hiding inside the temperature-regulated storage bay. They were called glimmers, tiny, translucent spacefaring organisms virtually invisible to most scanners. They drifted like living crystals, drawn by an irresistible attraction to concentrated sugar energy. And they absolutely loved syrup. By the time the ship arrived, the glimmers had quietly and meticulously absorbed every single drop of sweetness from the Gulab Jamuns, leaving behind perfectly intact, but completely flavorless shells. Back on Zyren Prime, Zibby insisted on analyzing one of the empty sweets herself. She took a cautious bite. Her face instantly fell. "It tastes like sadness," she declared with a dramatic shudder. The cubs around her gasped in horror. Emergency talks between Earth's top scientists and Zyron researchers began immediately. Within hours, a breakthrough came from human astrophysicist Dr. Kavita Rao. She had discovered faint, unusual energy signatures lingering inside the empty cargo containers. "These aren't theft patterns," she announced to the Joint Council. "They're feeding patterns." "Feeding?" asked the Ziran High Elder, his voice filled with confusion. Dr. Rao nodded, a thoughtful look on her face. "Exactly. You didn't lose your Gulab Jamuns to criminals. You lost them to a colony of hungry space plankton." The council chamber blinked in collective, silent astonishment. A joint mission was organized at once. For the first time in history, human chefs, Zyron biologists, and astrophysicists worked side by side aboard a research vessel, their mission, to track down these mysterious glimmers. Zibby, feeling a sense of responsibility, insisted on joining the crew. "These creatures—" "You said they are small?" she asked Dr. Rao. "Yes, microscopic, really," Dr. Rao replied. "Then we understand small," Zibby said firmly, her resolve clear. After tracing the faint energy signatures, they found them, a dense, shimmering cluster